This is the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast, Episode 4. Hello and welcome to this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. My name is John Melly, and this is the podcast dedicated to teaching in-depth and advanced marketing strategies for people in the voiceover and audio production professions. My goal is to help you make more money by showing you ways to leverage your time, charge more for your talents, and allow you to spend more time doing the things you want to do in your life. Hello and greetings from Boston, Massachusetts, and welcome to the program. We have a fantastic guest today. His name is Jim Palmer, also known as the Newsletter Guru, and we're going to be talking about the power of great customer newsletters and how they can create better clients who spend more money with you and generate referrals for your business, and I know you're going to enjoy it. But before we get started, I have a few announcements. First, this episode is sponsored by Vision Day, the one-day strategic planning day for your life. I did one a few years ago, and it's had a profound impact on my life and my business. And you can find more information about Vision Day at visionday.com. And there's a link to that in the show notes. Second, I'm happy to announce that I'm going to be a presenter at the VoiceOver Virtual Conference being put together by the folks at voiceoverextra.com. John Florian and his marketing director, Martha Kahn, reached out to me a while back and asked if I'd put together a presentation. And my presentation is going to be on how to build a six-figure voiceover business without spending your entire day auditioning online. I'm in the midst of putting that presentation together now, and it's the first time I'm going to be presenting it. I'm going to be peeling back the curtain on some of the key strategies I use to build my business. It should be fun, so I encourage you to watch voiceoverextra.com for details on when and how you can register for that virtual conference. It's all happening online, so this is exciting. No travel, no hotels, no, all that stuff that goes with having to go to conferences. And speaking of VoiceOver Virtual, my guest for the next episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast is going to be John Florian himself, the founder of VoiceOverExtra.com, and we're going to be talking all about the VoiceOver Virtual Conference, and that's where you can learn about all the exciting plans they have for it. I've also lined up several interviews for upcoming episodes. We've got a lot of very smart and interesting people lined up, so I hope you'll stay tuned and spread the word. I want to thank everyone for listening. I've been getting some great comments and feedback about the show, and I encourage you to post your comments about different episodes and ask questions at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. This is an interactive forum, so I want your feedback. I want to know what you're interested in learning about. So feel free to go to voiceovermarketingpodcast.com and post your comments and questions. I also want to thank everybody for sharing the podcast link with their friends. The number of listeners continues to grow, and I'm very excited about that, and I want to thank you very much for that. But before we get to our special guest, I have a question for you. Do you ever make the same mistake over and over? Here's one that I keep making. I give out free advice. Sometimes it's unsolicited, and when it's unsolicited, most often the people are not interested. But I'm the kind of person that when I learn something new or find something interesting, I like to share the information with people because I think it can benefit them. But not everybody finds the same information I find interesting. One of my resolutions this year is to refrain from giving unsolicited advice. And I guess it's one of the reasons why I'm putting together this podcast is that I can share some information that I learn with people, and those who are interested can listen. And if they're not, they can go somewhere else or they can stop listening. But here's something that I do sometimes too, and it drives me crazy. Sometimes I give out free advice when someone does ask for it, and the results are usually the same. Here's what happened. I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and someone I see at these events fairly regularly was in line with me to get into one of the sessions, and we were chatting about our businesses. And he did some advertising on the radio, and the results from his radio advertising really weren't what he had hoped for. And so he asked me if I would listen to his radio commercials and provide him with some feedback. And I said, sure, yeah, send them to me. So when we got home, I sent him an email. I said, hey, if you want me to listen to those spots, I'll be happy to do that. Now, perfectly candid, I'm thinking if I listen to the ads and I hear some things that I can actually improve upon, there's an opportunity there for me to produce some radio commercials and grow my business. So that's in the back of my head. And if you're a business owner, that should be in the back of your head too. So he sent me the commercials and I listened to them, and there were some things that could be improved. He didn't have a strong enough offer. He was trying to do too much with the radio commercials, give too much information. You know, one of those things that's a litany of different services they provide. We do this, we do this, we do this, and oh, by the way, we do that. And if you want more information, call us. And, that's just noise. It's not very effective. So I provided an analysis and invited him to set up an appointment to discuss the options so that we can improve the radio ads. Well, I got an email back from him, and he told me that he was doing something else, but if he needed me, he'd be in touch. And I was like, okay. I know I offered to listen to these ads, but I didn't expect you to say, yeah, okay, never mind, I'm not doing that anyway. So I was a little bold, and I replied back, I said, I got to ask, is what you're doing a different medium? Meaning, are you going to print? Are you going to television? Or are you going to do radio again? And his reply back was, yeah, we're doing radio again, but we're focusing on things that are more current with this time of year, meaning that the commercials he sent me to analyze were for winter-type products and services, and what he was doing was moving more into the spring-summer products and services. And so my reply back to him was, well, that's great. Are you going to structure your radio commercials for those products and services the same way that you structured your winter ads? And I got no response. The silence was deafening. And I got to tell you, I felt kind of used. And it's my own fault. But I think you can understand where it's like, all right, I spent some time here. I gave you some powerful suggestions, and you don't want to reciprocate. So I've had people tell me, John, if you're going to do that, they got to be on the clock. And I sometimes feel uncomfortable doing it. We were kind of buddies. We like some of the same music. But people I know and trust who are successful in their business always tell me that if people want your time, you should charge for it. And they're absolutely right. And I have to keep relearning that lesson. And it goes back to one of the things that I talk about all the time, and I'm kind of breaking my own rules, so I'm being perfectly candid with you here, is you got to treat your business like a business, and your time is worth something. If somebody wants your time, you should charge them for it. And I learned that lesson again. And with that, let's move on to the part of the program where we meet our special guest, Jim Palmer. Welcome back. As I mentioned in the intro, my guest today is Jim Palmer, and Jim is a marketing and business building expert and the host of Newsletter Guru TV, the hit weekly web TV show watched by thousands of entrepreneurs and small business owners. Jim is also the host of Stick Like Glue Radio. It's a weekly podcast based on Jim's unique, smart marketing and business building strategies. And I've listened to a few of Jim's podcasts, and they're terrific. He gets some great authors and great thought leaders on that program. Jim is best known internationally as the Newsletter Guru, the go-to resource for maximizing the profitability of customer relationships. Jim is the founder of Custom Newsletters Incorporated, which is the parent company of No Hassle Newsletters, No Hassle Social Media, Success Advantage Publishing, Concierge Print and Mail on Demand, Custom Article Generator, Double My Retention, and the Magnetic Attraction and Retention System. And on top of that, Jim is also the acclaimed author of 4 great books: The Magic of Newsletter Marketing, The Secret to More Profits and Customers for Life, Stick Like Glue, How to Create an Everlasting Bond with Your Customers so they spend more, stay longer, and refer more, The Fastest Way to Higher Profits, 19 Immediate Profit-Enhancing Strategies You Can Use Today, and It's Okay to Be Scared, but Never Give Up. Jim, I could go on with all the stuff you're doing and all of your accomplishments, but let's get into it. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me on, John. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I should let everybody know that Jim and I met, probably about 5 years ago at a mastermind group in Boston, just after The Magic of Newsletter Marketing book was published. And Jim and I have met several times at some conferences, some marketing conferences. And I just want everybody to know, Jim is one of those people who loves to help people grow their businesses. I had an opportunity several years ago to exhibit at a marketing conference that Jim had exhibited at a number of times, and I sent him an email, and I said, hey, I've just been asked to exhibit at this conference. Can I pick your brain for 15 minutes? Well, Jim was back with an email to me within a half an hour and said, call me now. And Jim, you gave me some great tips in that 15-minute conversation that really, really helped me out to prepare for that conference and maximize the opportunity when I was at that conference. So I want to let everybody know that we're in for a real treat by having Jim on the program today.
Well, thank you, John. Yeah, I remember that mastermind meeting. It was one I don't know, it was like a 10th or maybe even higher, like 20th floor of this building that overlooked Boston Harbor and kind of the Old Town area. It was so cool. And there's probably about 15 entrepreneurs in the room, and that is when we met. And I love masterminding. And gosh, you remember that phone call? That was something where when we exhibited together. That was pretty fun.
Oh, it was great. I mean, you gave me a couple of great tips that were just huge and made the whole process, because I was flying by the seat of my pants when I was putting that all together. I had just launched this product, and then and I was fulfilling orders, and then somebody said, can you come and exhibit at the trade show, and here's the opportunity that we have, and all that kind of stuff. And I just said, who can I turn to? And so you were there. So I thank you. I know I've thanked you before, but anyway, let's dive in. You've got so much going on, but you're really known as the newsletter guru. And I guess the question I have, we have voiceover and production people, but we also have other business folks, people in totally different businesses than voiceover listening to the program. But you're a big advocate for newsletters, and I want you to explain why.
Well, first of all, let me say I'm a big advocate for print and mail, paper and ink, good old-fashioned, get them out of your mailbox at the end of your driveway or in your office newsletters, not the electronic ones. I do electronic newsletters. They are a very important part of my overall marketing strategy, John, but print newsletters are, bar none, the greatest customer relationship building tool there is. Nothing helps you grow and maintain and, build stronger relationships. In fact, I always refer to them as, to build stronger, healthier, dependable, reliable, predictable, and profitable relationships. Because, first of all, what business owner doesn't want to sell more of, whether they're selling goods or services? And the first place, if you want to sell more, the first place you should turn to are the people that have already proven themselves to be buyers. And those people, that group of people I'm referring to, are your current customers. And so your current customers are the ones that were, in my opinion, when I see business owners spend so much money on customer acquisition, doing everything under the sun to try and attract new business, yet once they get a new customer buys something, the next thing they do is they say, well, let's go get another one. And really, it's the initial transactions for every business. I don't care what business you have. The initial transactions are usually barely profitable, if any profit can be derived, if you want to consider your marketing and all the other expense that goes into getting that customer.
The wooing costs.
Oh, I know. Yeah, wooing, that's good. So, John, what I say is you are shortchanging your business. I actually think it's kind of like, I call it entrepreneurial malpractice. If you don't do everything you can do to maximize the profitability of each and every customer relationship. And I could go on for half an hour, but I'll see if you got another question.
Well, no, I mean, it's true. You said paper and ink and put it in the mail, and somebody's got a hard copy of it. And I know in our world, we're doing podcast, so this is going to go out over iTunes and Stitcher and the internet. A lot of the folks in the voiceover community are involved with Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Pinterest and all that. And so I know what's going on in the back of somebody's mind. Do I really have to do paper and ink? Isn't Twitter, isn't Facebook, aren't those updates enough? Prove to me why I should do a hard copy newsletter.
I got you. It's not like the first time I've heard that question.
I'm sure.
So, here's the thing. This happened to me recently. I can't remember what it was, but one of the magazines I've subscribed to for so long is going to go digital.
Okay.
Oh, and it's going to look amazing. You can read it on your iPad. Well, excuse me. I like to sit on my couch at night While Stephanie's watching HGTV or some such show, and I like to read my magazines. I subscribe to Entrepreneur, Inc., Money, Boating, Cabin Life, all these things that I'm interested in, and I read magazines at night. I think, first of all, I think it's a good thing to do educational-wise and things like that, but I got to tell you, there's no way in the world I like reading anything, especially large documents, online. It just doesn't work. Now, the other thing, that's kind of my own mini rant, but let me get back to newsletters, online versus print. There's a few reasons why you want to make sure you have a print newsletter. First of all, your job as a marketer is to always stand out from the crowd. And so right away, print does not have to compete with as much noise or clutter as email newsletters do. And so let me give you, for example, when I go out to my mailbox every day, I get somewhere between 6 and 10 pieces of physical mail. But I know I'm well over 200 emails a day. Now, some of that's spam. I don't see it. A lot of it I do, and I delete it as quickly as possible.
Right.
But for the most part, you're just another email. I've got a newsletter that I send out every Tuesday. Been doing it for over 5 years. Goes out to 17,000 entrepreneurs. Now, not for a moment do I think 17,000 entrepreneurs are getting it. I know for a fact that deliverability rates on email is dropping like a stone. And if you can get even 10% deliverability, you're doing well as an internet marketer. Now, if you think about that,
Jim, you're talking email, not hard print.
That's right. Well,
Okay.
I'm comparing. I mean, listen, deliverability on print and mail newsletters is 100% unless you got the mailman from Seinfeld who's dumping them in his apartment or something.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, if you want to get your customer's attention, if you send them something into their mailbox, and if you do it right, it'll even stand out taller than a business envelope. It's going to be seen. Now, your next job is to get it open and read, but it will be seen. If you're counting on email alone, let's just say, for sake of discussion, John, let's say you have 1,000 customers. So somebody who's listening to this has 1,000 customers. If you do a very, very nice-looking email newsletter, the minute you hit send and think you're going to communicate with your customers, your actual customers, by a long shot, maybe 100 of that 1,000 are going to actually have that email hit their inbox because of all the spam filters and things like that. What that tells me, John, and so I'll pretend I'm a newscaster and I'll put the negative slant on it, 90% of your customers are not hearing from you. And so we know from Direct Marketing Association that every 30 days that goes by without your customers hearing from you, 10% of them will forget your name. And so, again, I'm a big fan of email. I do email marketing. I have my e-zine, but that is only one part of my overall marketing strategy. But for the people that pay me money, my customers, in my case, my members and things like that, I mail them every single month. And that way I know they're getting it. I know they're seeing value in it. There's a lot I could say, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a slant on the email versus print. No,
that's really compelling. I mean, the numbers don't lie, and you definitely want to stay in touch with your clients. I do a print newsletter, so I mean, you helped sell me on the concept a long time ago, and so I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here.
John, I remember that. In fact, one of the things, I think you asked a question once when I was up speaking at that meeting we were talking about, and you said, how long does it take? Because, there's an investment. Now, it's not huge, but there's an investment in printing and mailing newsletters.
Yeah.
I said it takes about 6 months for a newsletter to start working. And what that means is it's not a coupon like Valpak, or it's not some kind of marketing piece or a sales letter. A newsletter is a relationship-building tool. And again, we know that stronger relationships always lead to more repeat business. It leads to more referrals. So the relationship building aspect is what's key. But I remember telling you, John, it's going to take 6 months. You also, I don't even know if you remember this, but about 6 months after you got started with my program, you sent me a testimonial because you started getting some referrals, and I think you got a couple repeat sales from somebody, and it was right around the 6-month mark.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was uncanny. You hit it right on the mark. And the thing is about the newsletter is that as a writer or a publisher of a newsletter, you're writing it with this intent in your head of like, okay, I'm expecting to see a return on the investment in some way. But it usually comes in a way that you don't expect it to. Just because you've maintained contact with a client, they might think of a project that they might need you for that they might not have needed you for 2 months ago, but then they had this idea, and maybe your newsletter planted the idea in their head and say, hey, you know what, I might try that for my business. Or they might say, I know somebody who could use what you're doing. Let me give you a referral. And so the thing I tell people when they're thinking about doing a newsletter is like, it's going to pay off, but it won't pay off in the way that you're expecting it to. It's going to come in a different way. Does that make sense?
Right. Oh, yeah. Another one of my favorite testimonials, and when it came, I was giving it all the time when I was out speaking, and I don't speak quite as much now, but I still refer to this testimonial. So somebody was in, one of the things I say about newsletters, they're going to get passed around, and you're going to get more referrals than you will ever get from email or any other thing. And so this company, again, back probably in the same time frame as when you started, this woman, she had a company that used insulation, that installed insulation in buildings and whatnot.
Okay.
And so my strategy on how you put together a newsletter is you want one lead article, which is kind of about your business. It's where maybe it's a success story about one of your products or services, how it helped another company. And if you write it in a story, it doesn't come across in a kind of a real salesy way. Anyway, so this woman, her business is actually in Pennsylvania. Her newsletter, she mailed it to one of her clients. I believe the client was a contractor in Illinois, in Chicago area. And this contractor in Chicago was friends with a contractor in Hawaii who was had a job rehabbing this very, very old building, and he was having a heck of a time finding insulation that would fit because I think like the studs, and they were all like odd sizes. Anyway, so this newsletter that she writes, it had her lead story was about this new spray foam insulation, right?
Okay.
I think I've given this testimony so many times. Listen to this. It was called Blaze 2. I can refer to it.
Okay.
And so she wrote about Blaze 2 insulation. So it goes to the newsletter. Her print and mail newsletter, a simple 4-page black and white newsletter, got mailed to her customer base, including the contractor in Chicago. He goes, oh my gosh, John in Hawaii should see this. So he sent it to John in Hawaii with a Post-it note, said, John, you should see this. I know you're interested. They end up contacting, and it turned into a $400,000 spray foam insulation sale.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, I'm always talking about testimonials. So everybody knows I love testimonials. Well, this person, her name is Mary Beth, she sends me a testimonial and told me this whole story, and she goes, by the way, 3 things I remember you telling me when I heard you speak. It takes about 6 months to work. It was 6 months almost to the day from my first newsletter to when I got that deal. You also told me newsletters will get passed around and be the source of referrals, and you are right on every count.
Yeah, it's cool. That's awesome, and it's going to make you feel really good about the information that you're sharing with people because it works.
It does. It absolutely works. And that's when people, if they challenge me or whatever, I say, listen, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've got clients in 9 countries. You're not going to convince me it doesn't work because it does. You can choose not to do it, but you can give me any argument you want. And I'll come back at you with some evidence and proof.
Jim, what do you say? Because I get this a couple of times, and there are a couple more questions I want to ask you about this. But what do you say to somebody who says, can you just send me a PDF? I'd rather have this a PDF of your newsletter. Why are you spending so much money printing and mailing this?
Well, a PDF is really no different. It's in the same category as an e-zine, electronic newsletter, except the PDF is an attachment to the email. Mm-hmm. Now, again, there's some other things about reading. I gave you one about one of my favorite magazines is going digital. Oh, we're going to be a totally green company, but I'm not about to read, a 60-page magazine on my iPad. I just can't do it. I've tried it, really. Yeah. And so people do not like to read large documents. Now, could somebody open a PDF? Well, maybe. Would they do it? Okay. You know what? Oh, here comes a newsletter from, John, my voiceover guy. I'll put it in my to be read later folder in my email thing. Well, how many times does anybody? Yeah. I've got a folder and it's called follow up. So I like a clean in bin, right?
Yeah.
It's just my thing. At the end of the day, I want a clean desk and I want a clean in bin.
Yep.
So a lot of stuff gets shoved into follow-up. I got to tell you, there's probably 3,000 emails in follow-up, and it's kind of like, when you do spring cleaning in your house. If I haven't touched it in like 6 months or a year, I don't need it. So if it's not reoccurring or something, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Now, I know for a fact, because it's happened to me, I could go in my house, I've got some newsletters that I subscribe to. They stay around. I've got a whole drawer full of certain newsletters, and yet others that I get, they'll sit on my coffee table, I'll read them.
Yep.
I take newsletters on the plane when I travel.
Right.
They're portable. I can hand them to people.
And you don't have to turn them off during takeoff.
And you don't turn them off. That's right. So, listen, we can say a PDF is good. In fact, what I tell people is on your website, you want to have a tab on your website that is for newsletters. And so when people go there, they can see all the monthly issues you have, and obviously they can download and look at a PDF. But what I also say is on that same page, you say, would you like to receive a free 1-year subscription to our newsletter? Now, even if your newsletter is free, I think you should say it's an annual subscription, but you're going to comp it and just give a little value to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, perceived value is important. Plus, the content that you're putting into it should be of value. And that's actually the next question I want to ask you about is somebody's sitting here listening to us talk about it. It's like, yeah, okay, that sounds great, but I'm already busy. How much time is this going to take? And how do I come up with the stuff to put in my newsletter?
Well, it does take time to do a newsletter if you're going to do it correctly. There are services like mine. I have a company called No Hassle Newsletter, as you know well.
Yep. And
so we provide a ton of content. We provide done-for-you templates. But if somebody wanted to do it on their own, the first thing to know is a 2-page newsletter is 8.5 by 11, printed front and back. That's a 2-page newsletter.
Yep.
A 4-page newsletter is 11 by 17, folded to 8.5 by 11. That makes it a 4-page newsletter.
Right.
That is approximately, 400, maybe 500 words tops per page. But it's a little less if you have pictures. I know you're a big fan of pictures, and you got your image with the microphone and stuff like that, which is good. Very, very good. Every month you use that. So here's what you put in a newsletter. This is what you put in, what I consider a friendly customer newsletter. What you do is you put in your lead story, which is a story about how one of your products or services has helped another client. On the back page or somewhere there, you put in what I call your personality-based snippet or copy, and that is coming from you because, most of the people I work with are entrepreneurs. They're not major companies.
Yeah.
So in your case, John, you write about things you're doing, whether you got a new dog, you just got back from vacation, maybe you ran some race or you're going boating or whatever it is. The whole idea is to help people get to know you a little bit more than just the old kind of the B2B, business-to-business world. Tear down the corporate veil, as I say, and let people get to know you. And then the rest of it, and here's the thing where a lot of people stumble and go, I don't know about that. But the rest of the newsletter outside of those two pieces are what your readers are going to consider fun, interesting, informative, and entertaining. And basically what you're doing, it's like Reader's Digest type content. It's stories that don't necessarily have to do with your business, but your customers will enjoy reading them. See, if you focus on your customers, a lot of people when they do newsletters, they put the wrong hat on. They put their CEO hat on and says, what are we going to promote this month? No. You need to put the hat on of your customer and say, so if my customer gives me 10 minutes a month to read my newsletter, what can I show him? What can I give him to read that's going to make him go really inside his head go, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Hey, honey, check this out. And if you can do any one of those, the next time your paper and ink hard copy newsletter hits the mailbox, he will literally have a physiological warm feeling. He's going to go, there's John's newsletter again. Can't wait to read it now. That's a little overblown, but he's not going to go, I'm not going to read that. That was full of coupons, and all he does is talk about himself and promote himself, and you know what I mean? So there's a big difference there. It's
not that far from what actually happens, though. I mean, I've gotten emails from people. What was one of the biggest things that I put in from your No Hassle News service is the trivia. And I would get emails from people saying they loved the trivia. He and his son would sit down and go over the trivia questions and from my newsletter. And it's a voiceover and production newsletter. And he was interested in that. But, there's the monologue that you just talked about, talking about what goes on in my day-to-day activities. And I try and tie it into some marketing lesson. But you do get comments on the non-business stuff. One of the things that I think you shared this was you had a guy who was an accountant. Yeah. Who was putting out an accountant newsletter, his practice, and he was coming in with all of these, IRS regulations and how you can do this, that, and the other thing, and he wasn't getting any response from it. And you pointed out to him.
It's actually more embarrassing than that, John. He's my accountant. This is a true story.
Oh, okay.
He's been my accountant for 10 years. For whatever reason, he just doesn't use my service. He subscribes to one of these services. It gives you like a newsletter that's 100% canned, and you can just put your name on it. All right, so it saves you some time, but you don't get to customize it or make it your own.
Yeah.
And it is 8 pages, or sometimes it's only 4, but it's 8 pages of 100% text. There's almost no picture. It's like 10-point Times Roman about tax law. Here's what you need to know. Here's the latest, how this health plan is going to, and I'm like, I don't read this, and I always just because me being me, I like to bust his chops.
Sure.
When he comes here every quarter, I said, man, here's another waste of money. He said, that's so funny coming from you. I said, and he goes, well, why don't you read it? And I said, you know why? Because every month you come here and you keep me lean, legal, and, paying whatever tax I need to pay, and that's it.
Yep.
You, sir, need to, I won't say his name, you need to understand tax law. I don't.
Right.
I understand marketing and growing my business. If I want to learn tax law, which I don't, I'll go ahead and learn it, and then I won't have a need for you.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit like your car repairman. I think people who repair cars, everybody should be sending out a newsletter. But why would he send out a newsletter that tells people, how to time an engine, or here's how to put in a new drivetrain? I mean, I take my car to you because I want a car that continues to run. I don't want to learn how to fix it. Now, if he tells me, hey, by the way, here's how you can improve your gas mileage, the old put more air in the tires type thing, or here's a tip, coming up into summer, here's 3 ways to survive a long car ride on the way to vacation with a car full of kids. And it's kind of good-natured and things like that. And so what it does is it keeps that car repairman, it keeps his name top of mind. It keeps all of his customers thinking of him, remembering him. Now, how many of those customers from the car repairman, if they also get an email newsletter from AAA or somebody else, and how many people actually read that? 0. But if you are a local car guy and somebody he sends a print and mail newsletter to his customers, how many? Is it really hard to fathom that you're going to have stronger relationships, and the next time you need a battery or whatever, you're going to go see John the car repair guy? That's what happens.
Yeah, you just gave me 3 tips to get through a long car ride, so I'm going to help take my car to you to help me get through that long car ride.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've invited them to do it. So you're saying don't spend a lot of time writing about your own business or how to do the business. You want to give some of that, but then also be fun and entertaining and share about yourself.
It is, and
okay.
it is 100%. And I kind of say Reader's Digest to help people understand the type of content. I mean, there's a couple words I sometimes use, filler or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I for some reason I think those have derogatory meanings. But
sure. Yeah.
Reader's Digest is one of the most subscribed to periodicals of all time, and it's not about any one subject. I mean, there's your humor, there's crosswords,
yeah.
There's, they used to have psychologists and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
They have the true life story. Here's how to get, red juice out of white carpets type stuff.
Yeah.
And people read that, they flip through it, they're all short stories, and because you know what? They're so busy, they're so ingrained in their own business, in their own life. It's a little bit of escape, but it's also a little bit of fun. It's interesting and it's entertaining, and that's why people get it.
I have to watch the clock. I want to ask you a couple more questions, but you've talked a couple of times about the No Hassle newsletter service. In case people are interested in learning more about that, how can they get more information about your services?
Yeah, real easy. Just go to nohasslenewsletters.com, www.nohasslenewsletters.com. newsletters.com. We've got a number of different programs, everything from just content and email templates to a bunch of done-for-you newsletter templates, a lot of different industries, things like that. It's a wonderful program. And, we basically take care of everything. And what I tell people that become members, if you spend any more than 1 hour per month on your newsletter, you are totally over-engineering it because we do it for you. We literally create your newsletters for you, so you don't have to worry about that.
Excellent. This next question dovetails a little bit into what we were talking about content, but I was looking at your website, getjimpalmer.com, and I noticed that you had a post that said, you'll earn more for who you are than what you do.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
You will always earn more for who you are. And other people are drawn. I mean, first of all, we live in a celebrity type of culture, whether you like it or not. And so, I'm not talking about, going out and becoming a celebrity as far as movies or rock stardom or anything like that. But whatever niche you're operating in, you want to be seen as the go-to person in that niche. You want to be the smart guy on top of the hill, so to speak. And so, let's say you got some heart trouble. Are you just going to go to the local hospital and say, I'm told I need heart surgery, sign me up? No, you're going to do a little research and find out who is the best. When I got melanoma 12 years ago, I went and found who is the best melanoma guy in Philadelphia. I found out the guy who kind of pioneered this new surgery and how they didn't have to rip out all your lymph nodes and stuff like that. And I called him. This was all in about 48 hours, and they said, Dr. Zernicki there's a plug for Dr. Zernicki. I remember his name. He's booked now for at least a month out. I said, well, I'm coming in tomorrow. I'll come in the morning or I'll come in the afternoon, which would be more convenient. Well, he's booked. I said, well, I will be in. I just want to know when is the most chance of fitting me in? I got in. They go, man, you're one persistent SOB. But,
hey, your life's at stake.
When your life's at stake, it's funny. But so I went to the best. Now, if somebody wants to learn how to create an awesome newsletter, my guess is they're going to Google newsletter marketing, something like that, and my name's going to come up. If they want to learn who is the best guy to do voiceovers, do commercials, and do all kinds of, voiceover talent, I would think your name's going to be near the top of the list. So whatever you do, John, whatever you're known for, I mean, even if let's just say you're my accountant who sends out a crappy newsletter, what he should do, he's a guy who specializes in entrepreneurs and small business owners that use QuickBooks.
Okay.
And I told him that's a very good move because, he's got a whole staff of accountants that work for him. So when people like me call up and go, oh, my God, I just did something. I deleted a transaction. How do I get it back? Anybody that's in his office goes, okay, open it up, go to transactional history. Okay, there it is, and I can put it back. So because, there's a lot of small business accounting software out there, Peachtree and a bunch of different ones. But he specializes and takes on clients in QuickBooks, and it's almost like Southwest Airlines strategy. They fly nothing but 737s because they've got parts everywhere for 737s. They don't have to, oh, crap, that part's in Detroit, So it's just like that. So you want to become known as the go-to person in that niche. And so when you are known as that person, whatever it is, who's the best person to do this? And everybody goes, oh, that's so-and-so. That is what I mean about you'll get paid more for who you are than what you do. And what I say is, listen, I'm sure there's some writers, there's some designers who can create newsletters as good, maybe even better than me. But I've been a better marketer for the better part of 12 years, the newsletter guru, the go-to person for all things newsletters, client retention, et cetera. So,
right.
And so that's what I mean about it's more about who I am than actually what I do at this point.
I mean, and that's just great advice for any type of business. Well, Jim, we got a couple minutes. Do you have any other tips that you want to share with us? Any big mistakes you see people make all the time that they shouldn't make?
I think one of the things I see people do with newsletters is they try and pack too much in. So they think, well, if I'm going to put out a newsletter, I want to give a ton of value. Mm-hmm. Now, I appreciate the mindset about giving a lot of value, but I have a thing, it's called the Newsletter Guru Scale of Readability, and it goes like this. When your customer gets their newsletter in their mailbox, and they break the little tab, They look at the newsletter. They need to quickly assess in about 1 second, can I read this in 8 to 10 minutes, or is this going to be something I need to read later? And if it is something they're going to read later, then what they're going to do is put it in the to-be-read later pile of mail.
Yep.
Sometimes it gets read, sometimes it doesn't. If it's short, quick, and easy, and it looks like they can read it now, a lot of times they'll stand there or sit at their desk or stand there at the kitchen counter, and they'll breeze through it. I also recognize, John, because you mentioned that I do a lot of things. So every single week I put out a newsletter. Every week I do a video. I do my podcasts. I do emails. I do art marketing. I do a lot of social media. So all of that stuff is all part and parcel of an overall marketing strategy of, as Dan Kennedy would say, magnetic marketing. So I'm magnetizing myself, drawing people, entrepreneurs and small business owners to me to help them, maximize the profitability of their customer relationship. Everything I do is kind of based on that. And so I guess the last piece of advice I would give is, as a marketer, you want to avoid being bored with yourself. Because when you're bored, you're going to do something different. And so, for example, when I edit my videos, like I've been doing for over 4 years, and I see myself jumping off the dock, I go, I wonder if I should come up with something new. And then I'll go to a live event like we were just at a few weeks ago, and someone will say, yeah, you're the guy that jumps off the dock, Yep. And I go, dang it. Don't be bored, Jim. Just keep doing it, So
I see what you mean.
It's all about consistency. A good friend of mine, Melanie Benson-Strick, said one time, just about the time you're bored enough to want to change your marketing or your message is the time your customers and prospects are getting to know you and understand who you are and what you do. So don't change it just because you're bored. So be consistent in your marketing.
Interesting. Okay, so don't be bored in the sense of you don't get bored with what you're doing in terms of your message, because it may be old hat to you, but for people just entering your world or hanging out in your world for a while, they're just starting to get accustomed to it.
Yeah, I spent over 20 years in the bicycle business, and what I used to tell people is, look, this may be the 68th Little Red bicycle you're going to sell to Johnny, but it's his first Little Red bicycle.
Right.
So don't write it up and go, God, there's another Little Red bicycle. Who gives a crap? This is a big deal to them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So everybody has to get the same kind of excitement and, have a great experience that you come in contact with.
It's the same thing with voiceover. It may be the 15th, 100th time you've read a tag or a script or something like that, but the person hearing you in the car or in whatever medium that they're listening to you, it's the first time they're hearing you. So, yeah, we all have to have that mindset.
Yeah, so here's one more thing, because I was listening to some radio show, and they were interviewing ZZ Top, one of my favorite bands.
Sure, yeah.
And they go, God, they've been at it. I mean, I was into ZZ Top in the 70s when I was in high school, so they've been around so friggin' long.
Yeah.
But they go, hey, do you guys ever get tired? Is there any song you don't play anymore? He says, no, if the people want to hear it, we play it. It's all about the people. And they said, don't you realize if they didn't want to hear it, we wouldn't be able to do what we do.
Right.
So just because I played, Tush or something like that for 2,488 times, it could be the very first time someone's been to a ZZ Top concert and they want to hear Tush. So we're going to play it. We're going to kick ass playing, pardon my French, but that's what they said. And I thought, you know what? That is awesome right there. That's what it is. It's always about the customer.
Yeah. This interview has been awesome. I really want to thank you very much for taking time out of your really busy schedule to share this information with us, Jim. If people want to learn more, what's the best way for people to get Jim Palmer?
Probably the best way is to go to thenewsletterguru.com.
Okay.
Most of my sites have a consistent theme. So,
yep.
I have a podcast site. I have Newsletter Guru TV, No Hassle News. There's all these different programs. But if you get to any of them, you're going to find out about a lot more stuff. So thenewsletterguru.com, that's where my blog is. There are links to the TV show, links to the radio show. There's links to all my programs. So that would be a good place to start, is thenewsletterguru.com.
And that's thenewsletterguru.com, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Emphasize the.
Yeah. If you type in Newsletter Guru, you probably show up in Google, but let's go right to the source.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jim, this has been great.
Thank you, John. I've had a good time.
Great. No, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it for this episode of the VoiceOver Marketing Podcast. If you liked this podcast and you thought we had some good thoughts to share with you, please subscribe to it at www.voiceovermarketingpodcast.com so you'll get notices of new episodes, and please share it with your friends and colleagues in the voiceover world. Also, it'd be a huge help if you'd like this podcast and rate it on iTunes to help keep it near the top of the list. Also, feel free to share your comments and questions about this episode and topics you'd like explored in future episodes at voiceovermarketingpodcast.com. Also, if you'd like more information on coaching and mastermind group opportunities where we focus on growing your business, feel free to drop me a line at my cyber assistant's email address at mike@johnmelly.com. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and share your voice with the world.